Hello, everybody. Let me go ahead and bring up my presentation. Welcome to Inside William and Mary's School of Marine Science at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, a three-part webinar series. I'm very excited for you all to join us tonight for part one of our series, all about charting your course in marine science at VIMS. My name is John Griffin, and I am the Assistant Director for Admissions and Student Affairs here at the School of Marine Science. And I'm really looking forward to this session because I've got to put together a really phenomenal panel of VIMS students and faculty to talk with you all tonight. A little bit later, after I've talked to you for a little bit longer, you'll get to hear from Casey Hirschfeld, who is a first-year student in our professional MA in Marine Science program. You'll also get to hear from Dr. David Rutters, who is a research assistant professor here at VIMS, as well as the associate director for our marine advisory program. We'll also get to hear from dina Schoenfeld, who's a PhD student in our Department of Fishery Science. And then last, you'll get to hear from Dr. Deborah Steinberg, who is a professor and the department chair for our Department of Biological Sciences. As I said, it's a really amazing panel, and I can't wait to hear from them all and to have them answer the questions that you have. But before we get to that, I have a little bit more of our PowerPoint that we'll go through to make sure I'm addressing some of the more general questions that everybody might have, as well as talking about kind of my role and what I see. So the first thing is that we at VIMS and the School of Marine Science are a part of William and Mary, which is a globally recognized university located in Williamsburg, Virginia. We at VIMS, though, are located in Gloucester Point, Virginia, which is about a 20 to 30-minute drive away from that main campus of William and Mary. However, as you can see from this larger photo, by being located in Gloucester Point, we are able to be positioned right on the York River, which feeds into the Chesapeake Bay. So for individuals who are very passionate about marine science and coastal health and coastal resources, we are in a prime location to do it. But through our connection to William & Mary, all of our students and all of our community members have full access to William & Mary's main campus in Williamsburg, which is gorgeous, as well as its Washington, D.C. campus for courses and professional development opportunities. Through VIMS, we have 3 separate campuses. Our main one is located right here in Gloucester Point. We also have a research service up in Topping, Virginia. And then finally, we have an Eastern Shore lab located in Wachapreak, Virginia. All in all, this combines to make VIMS one of the largest marine research institutes in the US, and it makes sure that all of our students and our community members have all of the resources and facilities that they need in order to achieve the science and the research that they really want to do and achieve at that really high level. So what do we offer here at VIMS and the School of Marine Science? Well, in terms of our graduate program, we offer a Master of Arts, a Master of Science, and a PhD in Marine Science. So anybody who's interested in pursuing a master's so that they can apply marine science to professional organizations such as law or policy or business, outreach, education, not-for-profits, then our MA program is really designed for those individuals. And Casey will get to talk a little bit about that. We also have a Master of Science and a PhD in marine science, which are really focused on research in marine science. So whether you want to be in the field or in the lab doing work, those programs are more areas for the individuals who want to do research to then apply it into publications or research grants, things like that. And so the work that we do here at VIMS really extends from inland watersheds all the way to the open ocean. And our expertise is really focused on coastal and estuary science, and especially the Chesapeake Bay. And you're going to hear a lot about that from my panelists tonight in the work that they do in science and how they apply and the ecosystems that they study. So as I prepared for this evening and was thinking about what to talk about to convince everybody that VIMS is the place to be, I had to think about what makes VIMS stand out. And so I came away with these few topics, and maybe my panelists will disagree with me, but we'll hear from them. But this is my list, and I think this is why VIMS is the place for everybody to apply to and to come. The first is our faculty. We have globally recognized prolific faculty in the field of marine science and in their disciplines. And that means that our students have really great immediate access to a really phenomenal resource, whether that is in classes, as you can kind of see up top there, or through mentorship opportunities, advising services, anything like that. We have a really great student to faculty ratio, which just means that any questions or opportunities that our students have, they can engage with our faculty as a really awesome resource. Also, as I've kind of highlighted, our facilities and general resources are just abundant. So between all of our campuses and what they provide, our students just have access to a lot of field locations, a lot of lab opportunities, and all the equipment that comes with it to make sure that the science you're doing and the impact that you have is really operating at the highest level. That also comes in the form of our on-campus partners. You'll hear from Dave Rutters about the Marine Advisory Program, but we also have the Chesapeake Bay National Estuary Research Reserve, the Center for Coastal Resources Management, and Virginia Sea Grant. All of their offices are located right here on the VIMS campus, which just means that our students and our community have a lot of engagement with national and international marine science networks, whether that's in the research front or in professional fields. The work that our students are doing is translating extremely well into practical solutions and practical opportunities. And that goes into that next point, impactful science. All the work that our students are doing is not just collecting dust on some shelf somewhere. It's actually being utilized within the coastal and research communities around us, whether that is aquaculture research, studying harmful algal blooms and aquatic toxicity, to fish health and fisheries management. All of it that is done here is being translated to like K through 12 programs or to the professionals and the individuals out in the world who actually need and can use our science. And then the last thing that I really want to highlight for what I think makes VIMS stand out is the community and the student life. It's a true joy to work for VIMS and our students because the community is so fun and so welcoming. As you can see from this photo down here at the bottom, everybody's just very excited to be together and to share the experience of VIMS with each other. And so whether that's doing research and doing work or starting a kickball league or going to try surfing at Virginia Beach or anything like that, our students are really passionate and really enjoy being engaged with each other, and it just makes it a phenomenal network to be a part of. Admissions here at VIMS, the application is currently open and will close on January 5th. So please make sure that you have that application submitted by that time. As for the components, you can find all this list online, but you need to have completed a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution. You need to have submitted a transcript, can be unofficial at this time. If you're an international applicant, we need your TOEFL or IELTS scores submitted. We also need a resume or CV submitted. And then we also have three statements that we would like you to reply to. 2 of them are required, 1 of them is optional. And you can find all 3 of those prompts online or on the application. So please make sure you look into those. And then we also need 3 letters of recommendation submitted to us on your behalf. And then finally, there is an application fee of $54. However, there are a number of fee waiver opportunities available. So please just make sure that you look into that list. And if you think any of them apply to you, request that. And I would love to reach out and see if we can make that happen for you. All this information can be found through this link here, but also the final section of this webinar series taking place on November 18th is all about a deeper dive into this application process. So if you have questions related to application components or how faculty review applications and admission decisions are made, please register for that session. It's going to be really great, and it's going to provide you with a lot of inside information about how admissions works at this institution. One thing I hear in my role and that I kind of wanted to talk about in this early session is I hear from students who are a little bit anxious about submitting an application to the School of Marine Science, worrying that they did not take the correct path in order to come to VIMS. And I just want to relay that there is really no such thing as a correct path to come here. So what I wanted to relay to you all is that I looked at the past 3 incoming classes of admitted students to VIMS to see what majors students pursued in their undergraduate studies. There's a preconceived notion that all of our students come with marine science backgrounds, but that's just not true. As you can see here, there is a good amount of marine science and environmental science, but there's also your whole host of geology, physics, chemistry, fisheries and wildlife science, design, a whole gambit. So there's really no correct course of study to come here. So long as you have a strong science background, we can find ways to make it work. And we're really excited to have all of this diverse experiences coming to VIMS. In a similar vein, a lot of students worry that they didn't go to school in the right location. They didn't go to a prolific coastal institution, or they didn't go to an Ivy League school. And I'm just here to say, by looking at the last 4 classes of admitted students, our students come from all over the US and international, whether that is from landlocked states or desert states like Arizona or Idaho, or your Midwestern states. Students are coming from large public institutions, small liberal arts schools, to coastal institutions. So once again, there's really no right path to coming to VIMS. A lot of different ways will make it work, and we're happy to see students coming from all over. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is postgraduate success from VIMS. You're coming to VIMS, you're getting your graduate degree in marine science for a purpose. And VIMS can help you achieve a lot of different career success in a host of different ways. As you can see from our postdoc opportunities, our graduates from our PhD land postdocs across the US and international that are really prolific, and we're really proud to see that. But then also in like the research scientist area, our students get placed really well at NOAA, the Smithsonian, or local state institutions. Also, we place really well for policy fellowships. So whether that's the Canals Fellowship through NOAA, which places students, recent graduates, in executive or legislative offices on Capitol Hill, or in the National Academy's Policy Fellowship. We also have students who go into the for-profit sector, or students who go into education and outreach. And then finally, students who earn their master's here, but then decide that they need to pursue a PhD elsewhere. So VIMS and the preparation that we provide students really make sure that our graduates can leave VIMS and achieve their career goals at a high level, no matter kind of where it is that they want to go. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and that's enough of listening to me talk on. So I'm going to invite our very first panelist to come up. So Casey, would you please join me up here on center screen and introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about you for a bit?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, John. Hi, everybody. It's great to have you guys here. I know we're all very excited to talk to you about VIMS. So like John said, my name is Casey Hirschfeld. I am a first-year MA student, and I am working with Andrew Scheld, who's a fisheries economist, and I'll be doing my capstone, so it's a little bit different than a thesis or a dissertation. But my capstone will be on offshore wind policy, looking at Europe and trying to figure out some opportunities for the US to chart a sustainable course forward for that. My path in marine science, I fell in love with the ocean when I was really little, 7 or so, and knew that forever that's what I wanted to do. So I went to College of Charleston down in South Carolina, and started out thinking I was going to do a traditional research path, and did some full-time research my sophomore year. And found out quite quickly that that was not the path for me. While I love science, I did not really enjoy being in the lab and in the field. I also have a really strong environmental interests as well, so it felt just not where I was suited to be. So from there, I sort of pivoted, stayed in my marine biology major, but tried to look for other experiences in nonprofits and government, advocacy, things like that. I graduated in 2018 and really decided to take some time to work before I went into a master's program. I worked for 1 year for a small consulting firm in DC, working on federal agencies and their sustainability goals, and then just worked at Compass Scientific Communication, again in DC, for 2 years. So my interests are much more in the science policy and science communication realm. I don't really see myself doing research in my career long term. I would much rather help other people who are doing research connect their work to decision makers and stakeholders and everyone that needs the information to do their jobs better and to protect our planet. So those are my goals. And when I started looking at grad school, it was only professional programs for me. I had no interest in a traditional MS or PhD, and felt really lucky that VIMS was starting this program at the same time that I was looking. I looked across the East Coast, and I'm happy to speak to some of that later, and why I chose VIMS. But this is definitely the place I wanted to be, and I think there are some really unique, special things about the VIMS professional program that you just don't see, at least on the East Coast. I can speak to that in other schools. So I'm excited to talk with you all, get some questions later on, and I will pass it back to John.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Casey. Now I'd like to welcome Adina to come join me up here in center screen. And so Adina, would you like to say hi to everybody and let them know who you are?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm Adina Schoenfeld. I am a 5th year PhD candidate, so I have been here for a while. I know a lot about VIMS, seen a lot of people getting their degrees, moving on through. So I've been here for a very long time. I did my undergrad at the University of Miami. I studied marine science and biology. I didn't have any major research experiences while I was a student there. I did an NSF research experience for undergrad one summer. If any of you are not seniors yet, I would highly recommend looking into those. They're a really great experience. That is where I met my first friend in grad school. He was my mentor there, and I don't think I would have gone to grad school if I didn't know another grad student. So good on all of you guys for being proactive with this. It's a confusing process. So I think these, webinar series are so useful, and I'm sure you're going to get so much great information out of them. So straight out of undergrad, I came here. I'm in the Department of Fisheries Science, and I do quantitative fisheries ecology. So I'm doing a lot of statistical modeling. I do a lot of coding. I'm at my computer pretty much all of the time, except for when I occasionally go out on the trawls to collect the data that I'm using. We have several different trawl surveys that are always open to having students come on for a couple of days if you want to get some of that experience out on the boats. I'm also doing the sub-concentration in marine policy. And after this, it's a big question mark. We'll see where I go after, maybe a postdoc, maybe a job. I'm open to anything. I feel incredibly lucky for the training that I've gotten at VIMS to be able to be a candidate for a lot of different options moving forward in my career. And I am happy to answer any questions you guys have about VIMS.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Adina. All right. Well, now we'll be moving on to our faculty. So I would like to invite my first faculty to come and introduce himself. So Dave, please come on up here and talk to the crowd.
Great. Thank you, John. And good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to thank John for inviting me to be a part of this panel tonight. As I'll mention in a moment, I've had a long history at VIMS, so I've got a long perspective here. So as John mentioned in my intro, my name is Dave Rutters. I am faculty in the Department of Fisheries Science, and I also am the Associate Director of our Marine Advisory Program, which is a center at VIMS. My journey into marine science started quite some time ago. I always grew up near the water in Massachusetts and felt that as a draw for me. And so after a undergraduate degree in zoology, I applied to VIMS as a master's student, swearing I would be back up in Massachusetts in 2 years. Well, that was 25 years ago. And so I continued on with the PhD, and I'm currently in the roles that I just mentioned. So I think the things that really drew me to VIMS initially are still really relevant today. And if you have done a little bit of searching about VIMS, you'll know that we have a tripartite mission. And so the 3 parts of that mission are research. Well, we have a world-class faculty, as John mentioned. Education, top-notch education program as well, which John also mentioned. But then the 3rd part is advisory service. And so VIMS has a mandated role to provide advisory service to the Commonwealth of Virginia. And that part really resonated with me because I always felt that the work that I wanted to do should have a direct impact on stakeholders. And if you look at the Marine Advisory Program, that is actually what we do. We are a group of scientists and researchers and extension agents that reach into our coastal communities to really translate science into action. And so we interact on across a lot of different focal levels, commercial and recreational fisheries, shellfish aquaculture, education, and marine business. And so we reach out into the communities to help them with their marine related issues and translate the science back and forth from the stakeholders to the managers to the researchers. And so really that part has really been important throughout my whole career. And that translates the research into action. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about VIMS and has really been important to me as my career has progressed. And so on the research side, I'm the principal investigator for our Sea Scallop research program. And so this is a field-based research program that does a lot of applied fisheries research out on the continental shelf of the East Coast, working with the sea scallop fishery. And so we do things all the way from resource assessment surveys to trying to help with bycatch and basic biology of the animal on the shelf. So a lot of exciting things going on here at VIMS, a lot of great people to interact with. And I'm excited to chat with you a little bit further as this evening progresses. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dave. All right, now I'd like to welcome our final panelist. Last but definitely not least, Debbie Steinberg. Would you please come up and talk to everybody a little bit?
Sure. Hi, welcome everybody. I'm glad to also have an opportunity to tell you a little bit about VIMS and what I do here. So my path into marine science also started very young as a child growing up in Maryland and going to the Eastern Shore and to Chesapeake Bay to clam and generally swim and have a good time in the ocean with my family. And I think I really got interested in it at age 10 when I got stung by a jellyfish on a family trip. And I wondered, whoa, what was that? And just started looking into marine creatures. And strangely enough, jellyfish are one of my specialties to this day. So it made an impression on me. I went to college for marine science on the West Coast. And I also went to graduate school there. So as a college student, I got the opportunity to go on some research cruises and in the Sargasso Sea off Bermuda and also to Antarctica. And that's what definitely clinched my interest in being a marine scientist. And more specifically, I call myself an oceanographer. So I'm a biological oceanographer. And once I got my doctorate studying the deep sea ecosystem of Monterey Bay, California, I went to Bermuda as a research scientist and worked with their oceanographic time series. So I was in Bermuda for 5 years as a research scientist. And then I came to VIMS 21 years ago now to be a professor. And my specialty is zooplankton ecology. So I study the small drifting animals in the ocean, and I'm interested in the role that climate change plays in structuring and changing zooplankton communities, and also the role that zooplankton play in nutrient cycling in the sea. And I am at this coastal institution, and I do some of my work in Chesapeake Bay, in particular, studying the jellyfish and some of the other zooplankton here. But I also work around the world. I'm very interested in doing ecosystem comparisons, and so I've had research projects in pretty much every ocean, in the Pacific and the Atlantic and the Southern Ocean around Antarctica, the Amazon River plume. So I'm all over the place. And a lot of my research takes place on large vessels in big interdisciplinary oceanographic research programs. So I have a network of physical oceanographers and chemical oceanographers and other people that I work with to ask some big questions that you need lots of different disciplines to work together to answer. And so I've really, really enjoyed working with these large interdisciplinary groups. And my students also do work all over the world on these different projects that I'm involved with. And I have a group of them right now down in Chile waiting to board a cruise to go to the Southern Ocean off the Western Antarctic Peninsula. So I'm happy to be here. And I should also mention that I teach the biological oceanography course to our incoming graduate students. So I hope that to see many of you in my class come the fall. So thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Debbie. So I would now like to invite the rest of my panelists to join me up here again, to join Debbie and I. And also, Debbie, I would like to say that you just had your class get to take a fun cruise out on the RV Virginia to do some hands-on experiments with your phytoplankton toes. And seeing photos of that made me very jealous. It seemed like a great trip. And Casey, it seemed like you were on it and had fun.
It was a lot of fun.
So I think we are now into the Q&A portion of our session tonight. So I see a few questions have popped up already, and we'll get to those. But I'm going to cut in line a little bit, and I'm going to ask a few of my questions to the panelists to get the ball rolling. And then everybody else, if you have questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A, and we will ask the panel live or answer them via chat. So the first question that I would like to ask, and I think I kind of got the conversation started in my PowerPoint, but is, what, in your opinion, makes VIMS stand out for you? Why should people be interested in coming to this institution? So anybody feel like going first, or should I call on somebody? Debbie, you're currently unmuted, so.
Uh-oh. All right. Oh, I'm happy to answer that. So what I like to tell prospective students is that we are a very high concentration here of marine scientists in all different disciplines. And I think the education that our students get is very broad and interdisciplinary, because if you have a question about anything in marine science, there is somebody at VIMS that can answer it, and there is somebody here that can help you with all different aspects of your thesis or your program. And so I think there's just a lot of faculty here, and not just the faculty, but all the other the technicians and all the other other fellow students that are great resources for our students here. So I think that is one big reason, is just, we're a good size, but we're all also together on the same campus. We're not spread in different departments on a much larger university campus. So very high concentration, marine scientists doing all kinds of stuff, and you get exposed to everything. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think I want to now send this question over to one of our students. So Dina or Casey, you feel like taking a stab at it?
Yeah, I can get into it. I think actually, as Debbie was saying, that was one of kind of the big things for me when I was looking at grad schools. There was another school that I was really strongly considering, and the lab that I would have been in, he was the only fish guy at the entire institute. And so it would have been kind of isolating. There aren't as many people to bounce ideas off of. Whereas here we have several different departments, but even within the departments, there's such an array of what people study. Like, my lab is doing quantitative things, but I can walk down the hall and ask someone about genetics, or I can go to one of the other buildings and ask about oysters. Like, there's just such a wide array of expertise that's also still really focused on a lot of the similar things, and so many people are doing things within the Bay. So that was such a huge draw for me. And one thing that I also didn't really realize until a couple years in here, when I started going to conferences, was how well known VIMS is by other research institutions, at least regionally. At a lot of I was at a conference in Mobile, Alabama, and everybody knew who VIMS was. So there's a lot of respect that comes along with being at VIMS, which is also, I mean, amazing for career opportunities afterwards.
Perfect. Thank you. Hey, Dave, are you ready?
Sure, sure. Let me follow up on a couple of those thoughts. And so, I think when you think about applying to graduate school, I know at this stage you might think of it as kind of an endpoint, where really it's just the beginning. And I think that's one of the things that VIMS does really, really well. Not only does it prepare you academically, you are going to get a top-notch education at VIMS, but it gives you so many opportunities. You come out of VIMS with a wonderful network, and that network can take you a lot of different places. And so, typically a traditional route would be an academic route. That is just one thing that is an option for students that come out of VIMS. There are a lot of things that John mentioned. We have students that will place up in DC in the federal government. We have students at federal and state labs working in the private sector, NGOs, you name it, we're there. And I think what Adina said was really telling, in the sense that if you get out in the field and if you get out post-graduation, you're going to see a lot of people from VIMS. We have a lot of graduates everywhere, and they're really well respected, and they're in positions and doing great work. And so, I think that not only do you kind of have these things, these elements of VIMS when you're here, but it's after graduation as well, that this education and this experience will open many, many doors for you.
Yeah.
Wrap it up, John.
Please do.
So I agree with all that, especially, and I'll speak to the professional MA program specifically too, but I actually ran into 2 VIMS grads in DC at work events that I was at, that not only were like VIMS grads, but they were also advised by my advisor. And so that sort of like small world thing really exists, but there's also people all over in all the places that you want to be. So I think that's really great. In terms of the professional program, VIMS offers something really, really special here that's just not common across most professional programs. And a lot of that has to do with the size. Most professional programs that I looked at were huge, incoming classes of easily over 100 students. And it felt very much like entering an undergrad program all over again. You don't need to, for the professional masters, to reach out to an advisor at the beginning, but you will get matched with someone during the application process. So the second that you step on campus in the fall, you already have an advisor, which is something that was really interesting to me, because I already have my entire capstone project developed, and I'm applying to a fellowship that absolutely wouldn't have not been possible at another school, because most of the other places I looked at, you were sort of dumped into coursework, and then it was really on you to find someone and figure something out. It was much more of a competitive environment as well. VIMS is just really supportive, and I feel like I've been given the resources already to be really successful. We have our program director for the MA program, as well as that advisor. So there's just a lot of resources and a lot of people that are really helping me out. That's made it feel much more like a hands-on graduate experience rather than a very undergrad sort of go through the classes and go through the motions type of program. So that's something I really think is special at VIMS that you're not going to find anywhere else. And I will say, having everybody on one campus, all in the same place, all focused on marine science is also a really great aspect.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. So I'm now seeing a few questions in the chat related to admissions and applications. So I think we'll shift the conversation a little bit that way. And I'm going to take the first stab at a few of these questions. First thing is that the application is already open. It opens every year on August 1st and will close the first week of January. So as I said, this application for fall 2022 is now open and will close on January 5th. So please make sure, if you are wanting to enroll here for fall 2022, to get that application worked on and submitted. And then that kind of ties into wondering if our admissions is rolling. Our application is only open during those months, and we only recruit for fall classes. We really emphasize the cohort model, as kind of Casey was just talking about, is that we really function as a community here. And so we try and make sure that every student can start together in the fall so that they can start going through their coursework together and having that early bonding experiences. So As for when to submit an application, submitting it anytime is good. I would say making sure that it is in before the due date is the best way. And that's what I would say for early. But we usually see a majority of our applications come in right around this time up to January 5th. So still plenty of time. So now one thing that I want to ask of this panel is, what kind of advice would you give to prospective students who are thinking about going into graduate school for marine science? Like, what kind of advice would you give to individuals who are wanting to apply to VIMS right now? Who would like to go first?
I'll go ahead again.
Perfect. Thank you, Deb.
Yeah. So for applying to VIMS, presumably many people are in the last year of undergrad, or maybe you're finishing your master's work if you're doing a MS or a PhD application. And so, I think that really showing your research experience in your application is very important, and highlighting that, and having your letters with your application come from people who have some experience with you in hands-on research and can speak to that. And so again, I'm talking about sort of MS and PhD programs. And, in preparation, I'm assuming that most people have already done, their coursework or on their last coursework now. But if you're not, and it's still going to be another year or so, then getting some of that research experience is going to be really important. Or if you're applying for the MA program, some on-the-job type experience. And it's good both for your application, but it's also gives you a sense of, is this something you might want to go to graduate school for? Because it is a commitment, and it's a great experience, but it's also a big commitment and some hard work. And it's good to have a sense if it's something that you really want to do. So there's a few things.
Would either of our current students like to chime in for what kind of recommendations they have for how they went about their graduate application process, or what advice you would give about an admission process?
I can, and Dina, feel free to add. I started with talking to like all of my contacts. I tried to stay in close touch with professors and old supervisors and things like that. So I just started asking questions, like, here are a few programs that I've seen. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any recommendations? Where should I look? That was super helpful in building my original list. And then I just really winnowed down the list that I was looking at. I knew I wanted to be on the East Coast. I'm from the DC area. I want to go back to the DC area, and sort of figured out what programs felt like good fits. I only ended up applying to 3. I was really focused by the time I got to the actual application project or process. And I sort of tried to approach it by thinking about what I wanted out of it, trying to really formulate, what was the reason I was going back to grad school. And for me, it was about taking the next step up. I really liked what I did before this, but I just didn't have enough experience to be able to move up. So I was looking for a program that both had the scientific foundation, but also was going to allow me to do work in things like policy and economics and science communication and all these different areas that I'm really interested in, as well as the actual science itself. So that's how I did that. And then just, again, worked with people. I tried to use my network, asked people to look at my application pieces and knew who my recommenders were going to be, that sort of thing. And I did also, this is important too, and I will also make this offer. I talked to a lot of students. So I tried to find as many students as possible at the programs that I was applying to, again, through connections and through webinars like this. So I'm happy to talk to anyone who's interested in the MA program. Talking to people at VIMS was super helpful when I was looking. So I also think that's a really important part of your application process.
Just one thing to add on to that for the, a more traditional MS or PhD, typically you reach out to advisors you're interested in before you ever submit an application. Some schools won't even let you submit an application until the advisor you've been talking to like says, yes, I'm interested in reading their application. So I mean, when I was applying, I emailed probably a dozen or so professors all over the country. And then, you're going to get a lot of, I'm not taking students. Don't take that personally. They probably are truly not taking students. It has nothing to do with you. And then when I got to the actual application process, I also only applied to 3 places. And I just weighed my pros and cons on where I felt I had the most opportunities, where I felt the community seemed the healthiest. Some grad programs have a lot of competition amongst them. And this is, as if you speak to anyone at VIMS, anyone is going to tell you that we have like the best grad community. We're all so close knit. We do so many things, and it's true. So, and also if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm also happy to email or have a Zoom or whatever it may be.
Yeah, well, thank you. Dave, do you have any extra comments?
Sure. No, I think certainly these comments have really hit on the high points, and maybe I'll just tell a kind of a quick anecdote that has hopefully some nuggets of wisdom embedded in it. And so when I think about the graduate school process, I think about my brother. And so my brother was a geology major at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and it's a very small major. And so as he was getting to the end of his program, there was another individual in the major who was a very organized person and very focused person, which was kind of opposite of what my brother was. And she asked him, well, what are you doing next year? And he says, I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And so he says, maybe I'll just go to graduate school. And she says, oh, no, you can't do that. It's too late. It was about a week before applications were due. And he said, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to go ahead and apply. And so he went ahead and applied to a half a dozen schools. He hustled and got his applications in. And so kind of the first maybe nugget would be like, don't let spite dictate your path. You got to really, as Debbie said, you got to really think about what you want to do, because this is a commitment. This is a commitment to your future. And while it's not necessarily 100% binding, there is a lot of latitude. It does kind of put you down a certain path. And so as my brother put those applications out, he ended up getting accepted to a number of places, and he went to visit one to see if he was interested in going there. And when he was talking with students, which is also a very important point, he found out that it was a very competitive lab. And there was one member of the lab that was kind of ostracized a bit because he went to play golf one day a week. And my brother said, no, that's not the place for me. It is too intense. And so again, fit is important. Fit is important with your fellow lab mates, and fit is important with your advisor. And so that is also another thing that I think getting engaged and understanding the community that you're entering, and also the relationship with your potential advisor, is another important one, because fit is very important as you move forward, not only in graduate school, but as you get going into the professional world as well. And so finally, as my brother decided to which place he went, the day before he was supposed to make his final decision, he called up an advisor that he thought he wanted to work with and talked to him and said, we said, well, what do you want to do? And he says, well, I don't know. I kind of like groundwater. And this faculty member at the University of Arizona says, well, we don't do groundwater here. And but he said, oh, well, maybe we can make it work. And so my brother ended up going to University of Arizona and got his master's, and everything worked out fine. But that is the exact thing. That is the exact way not to approach graduate school, is what he did. He did all the wrong things. It ultimately worked out. So I would also encourage you to be engaged, and then you're going to also have to advocate for yourself, because this is not like an undergraduate experience. You are going to be in charge of your destiny to a greater degree. And so I would say engage with advisors, find if there's a good fit, and do your homework and do your research. And so I think those are 3 elements that I think are really important as you think about entering graduate school and where you might want to go.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave. So I have a question that I think I'll direct mostly to our 2 students, but Debbie, you can also chime in as a core course instructor. But how have you felt so far about the course load here at VIMS? Casey, you're kind of in the thick of it right now, and Adina, I think it's well behind you. But How has that felt as like a terms of a lift during the semester and getting through that? Has it felt manageable or impacted you in any way? Casey, since you're probably most on the mind for it right now, why don't you start us out?
Yeah, sure. So I don't find the coursework to be too much. I think you're definitely, as with most programs, going to have really busy periods of time. Midterms was kind of crazy. I had a bunch of things just stack up. It's how it goes. But I haven't had an assignment in a couple weeks, which I think this question was also asking about like time for research, and I'm not really doing research, but I am in this big sort of application period for a fellowship, and that's been taking a ton of my time, and I've been able to do it just fine over the past few weeks, even with all the coursework that I'm doing. And I'm in my first semester, so I'm in some of like the most coursework that I'll be taking. So that's been totally fine. I also really like that we get a lot of choice, right? So my undergrad courses were pretty prescripted, so there was only a few things I was going to take. Here you've got a really nice suite of options. So I don't think it's been too bad at all. 9 credits, that's, I was looking at doing more than that, and I'm glad I didn't, because you will have those very busy times, but it's definitely manageable and there's definitely time for other things. I also have a 10-hour-a-week assistantship, basically like a part-time job with the advisory services, a little different than Dave's advisory program. And I also have time for that every week too. So, it's not too bad at all.
I also personally did not find the coursework to be overwhelming. I think, in every cohort, there's going to be a couple people that struggle with time management, probably a bit more than others, but I think it's totally manageable. Your first year also, you don't have these like super heavy expectations to be cranking out your research. Like that's your time to be doing your classes, but also to be developing the project. Like there's a lot of thought that goes into your project before it becomes your actual project. You do a lot of reading, a lot of just like chats with your advisor to see what's going on, what options are available to you. So it's not intense research that you're killing yourself to get done while also doing your classes. It's understood that you have these classes to get done. My second semester, I wrote a grant with my advisor and another member of my lab that was, a full grant through the No Chesapeake Bay office. I think it was 20 pages. I did it in like, a month or so while I was taking the classes. Like it's not, the intensity of the classes is not enough to detract from you being able to do whatever you need to do for your research. And also all the professors are so understanding. If you have field work or you have something going on, like your research is the most important thing, and they all respect that 100%.
Perfect.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, Doug.
That's great. Great to hear that. And that has been the experience of, I know, my students too. And, I have 2 points I want to make. One is that I think that the coursework here is a big strength of our program. I believe that our students come out of here with very broad marine science knowledge, and not all students get that in their program. So I feel really comfortable that a student that graduates from VIMS could teach a marine science course, from the background that they've had here. And so I think it's a big plus, and that there is, as our students said, time to get started on your research and other things in your first year. And as Adina said, that, it is graduate school, and instructors like myself understand that people do start some of their field research in their first year. And we're pretty flexible about that. If you need to be away for a week because you're going on a fisheries survey or something, we accommodate that. It's a little different than being in an undergrad, and we're a little more flexible and understanding about having to do, other things sometimes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So now I have a question that I'm going to direct straight at Casey. So we have an attendee asking, what are the pros and cons of the MA program, and wondering if there is still overlap with the other graduate programs here so that you're able to build connections. So what has your experience been like so far in the program and building connections to the greater community?
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I really like, so there's 31 of us that came in this fall, which is like the biggest class in VIMS's history. Everyone's freaking out. But there's only 7 of us in the MA program. But immediately, John does a great job of organizing a 2-day orientation and then a trip to the Eastern Shore Lab. So you get to know all of these people really quickly. And the only reason that I would spend any more time with anyone in the MA program is we like to take similar courses. I know a bunch of us are in Debbie's science communication course in the spring. And then also there's a few things that we'll do, we'll connect over meeting with the program director or a few other things that we did. We did like a separate panel during orientation, but other than that, you're with everybody else. So it's extremely integrated. Some of my closest friends are, likely staying for their PhDs, as well as a few in the MA program. As far as like general pros and cons, I guess, John, I think I've already touched on it a little bit. I really like that I'm still getting to be in the sciences without being fully in the sciences. I like science, but I want to do other stuff with it. I don't want to just do science all the time. And I feel like this program's really given me the opportunity to do that. So I'm in Debbie's biological oceanography class, which is getting a really broad foundation on a bunch of different, very typical science topics. I'm also in marine resource economics, which my advisor teaches, and a public policy course. And so all of that together is giving me like a really wonderful entrance to my first semester. And then next semester, I'm taking science communication along with 2 other fundamentals that'll be more of that traditional science. So that's something I really like. As far as cons go, I did see a question about this being one of the earlier years of the MA. So, I mean, there's been a couple hiccups there where, folks on VIMS are still getting used to the MA program. So every once in a while, someone will be like, what is the MA program? And then, a couple things, like we're on a little bit more of an accelerated timeline. We're only here for the most part for 2 years. Usually master students are here for 3 and PhD students for 5 or so. Dina can talk about that. So, there's some things like I've had to make sure to balance and look at courses early, since some things are only offered every 2 years. So just proactive planning. But I feel like it's really flexible. I feel like that's one of the nice things about it being new, is I feel like I've gotten to really make it into what I want. And again, the support is really great. So yeah, I hope that answers whoever's question that is.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Great, John, maybe I can add maybe just a touch maybe from the mentor perspective, because I'll say that I currently am advising an MA and an MS student from the incoming class this year. And so in terms of the kind of the integration aspect, both of those individuals are integrated into our unit and our lab, and are doing a lot of the same things. So I personally don't differentiate because of program, and they are doing, they're exposed to all the things that the other is. And so I'll just say about the MA program, it was something that has been in development for quite some time. And I was excited about it from the beginning because I thought it fit so nicely into a lot of the work that we do in the Marine Advisory Program. And so it was really exciting for me to see it launch and grow. And it's an exciting time because, we are building these connections that are a little bit different than the traditional connections that an MS or PhD program might be developing. And so, just the other day, I was trying to talk some folks about the internship component and lining up some internships, and talking to some folks about how can we integrate with some interesting and somewhat innovative capstone projects. So I think it's certainly a young program, that's for sure, but it's an exciting time because it's a growing program, and it's really, I feel like it's really integrated into the VIMS academic program quite nicely, even though it's in its first year.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dave. So I'm realizing really quickly that we're basically out of time, which is just so shocking. So there's a number of questions that we didn't get answered, and I'm real sorry. please feel free to email me or any individuals on here. We're happy to answer anything. One question I do want to answer, though, coming from Bree, is asking about any types of diversity, equity, and inclusion type initiatives that we have going on campus. And that's something I'm really passionate about, and I don't want to lose the opportunity to speak on it. Here at VIMS, we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion steering committee that we call the Dive-In. I'm a part of it, and I work on our training subcommittee. And a huge number of the VIMS community take part on that committee to make sure we're having trainings or community opportunities, policy reviews, or communication initiatives going out to really speak to the work that we do here in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's a really big part of our community. But also, we in the graduate program hold a number of initiatives to make sure that we're advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in marine science, whether that is financially sending our students to professional development opportunities or professional organizations like SACNAS. We will make sure that our students have that community in which to surround themselves with, as well as other opportunities for development, whether or not it's us hosting an alumni networking event specifically for any of our students who identify as Black, African American, Latino, Hispanic, or coming from first generation status or LGBTQ. We try and host a number of events to make sure that we are speaking to those identities and the experience that you might have in marine science. So I just wanted to make sure we address that. And any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. So with that, I'm going to just share my screen really quickly again. So thank you everybody for attending. For more information about the graduate program, please feel free to come to our website. A bunch of this information is online. If we didn't get to answer your questions or you'd like to chat more, please email us at admissions@vims.edu, or that's my personal work email right there. And I'm more than happy to continue having this conversation or answer whatever questions you might have. Also, you can find us on social media, either through Twitter or Facebook. They are great ways to connect with us. Or you can stay up to date by connecting with the VIMS monthly e-newsletter called e-Tidings, which you can find that information here. It's a great way of knowing what all we're doing and what we're really proud about. And then finally, please make sure that you register to attend the remaining webinar sessions. Next week on Saturday, November 13th, I'll be taking everybody through a tour of the School of Marine Science with a whole bunch of current students, and that's going to be a great time. And then finally, the last session is taking place on Thursday, November 18th, which is all about navigating the application process. So that's a great way of really getting your time started for working on the application to get that submitted to us. And with that, I want to thank my panelists, Debbie, Dave, Casey, and Adina. I really appreciate you all taking the time to host this with me tonight. And thank you to you all who took some time out of your evening or day to join us for this. I hope it was informative. And I look forward to hopefully seeing your applications or your emails coming in the near future. I can't wait to see it. So with that, have a great night, everybody.